Okay, so look at The Evil Within 2 at 21:9. This was a very different experience to what I was expecting. Not the corridor limited, jump scare filled game that I was expecting, but instead an open, tightly and smartly designed one. I really like this game. But first, the 21:9 support. So as most people will be aware, the first game made a few waves by making everyone play it with black bars on the top and bottom of the image, so everyone had a 21:9 view. This effect though has not made it back into The Evil Within 2, but that doesn't matter for us because natively the game has strong ultra-wide support. Gameplay correctly shows off more on the sides of the screen at all moments, including first person and with the gas mask on, though I did experience clipping of objects when in events, but no other scenario I found caused it otherwise. There was also a bit of pop-in on the sides of the screen at 1 or 2 moments, but I'm putting that down to the overall general issue of texture and object pop-in that I experienced as a whole, and not because of the 21:9 view space specifically. The HUD scales to the sides of the screen effects appear to scale correctly to use the extra screen width, cutscenes are a mix of 16:9 with black bars and full screen 21:9 moments, but it's clear that every cutscene type is actually rendered in-game, not pre-rendered, and so I'm sure that it could get a fix to somehow remove the black bars. I would love that. In-game menus are all 16:9 with black bars, so that includes crafting, the map, options menu, etc. However, the main menu is unusually 21:9 with the background scene extending to fill the screen space. Lovely. Finally, loading screens are 16:9 with black bars, though the loading ring does shift to the far right hand side. What's weird with the loading screens though is the text is extremely low res for some reason. It's like 720p. Very strange. Now, the point to note is that there is a bit of a return to Beacon Mental Hospital, and in these moments the cutscenes are 21:9 but with black bars all around, which is annoying, and the gameplay, because they wanted to recreate the same view that you had when you were playing the first game on a 16:9 monitor, has black bars on the top and bottom. The only thing is that at 21:9 these black bars just extend all the way to the sides, so it looks pretty silly, but yeah, you aren't playing like this for long. On more general PC points, there is a good FOV slider. It's not huge, but it does go up to 90, and actually, whilst I'm playing on 90 here, it wouldn't be surprising if many of you don't like the slight stretching on the sides of the screen at this FOV level, and so would probably turn it down a notch anyway. And there is superb surround sound support, though I would expect nothing less in a horror game. And there is also full controller and mouse and keyboard support. Performance-wise, it's not great. So on a GTX 1080 Ti at 3440 by 1440, I was able to stay around the 60s on ultra everything settings, TAA and FXAA combined anti-aliasing. And quickly on this point, why TAA and FXAA are suddenly the only types of anti-aliasing in new games, I don't know, but it's very annoying. But yes, on the setup, I was struggling to maintain a steady 60 FPS. I would frequently drop into the 50s and sometimes 40s in very heavy moments, but luckily 40s was rare, and the FPS does fluctuate massively depending on where you're looking. It will jump from say 70 to 50 just by turning around, and this FPS fluctuation is a real problem, even for G-Sync screens, as you can notice that FPS drop because it's so sharp and such a large disparity in the space of half a second. And so, as you will no doubt notice in this video, there is a lot of slight stuttering throughout the game due to the FPS jumping around, though you won't really see it as obviously because this video is limited by YouTube to 60 FPS and I'm talking about greater than 60 FPS numbers, but yeah, you get the point. Graphically, the game is pretty damn gorgeous. Without doubt, that doesn't help matters, obviously, but it's still not a good enough excuse when you have games like Battlefront 2 that blow it out of the water in terms of optimization. Furthermore, like I mentioned briefly before, I got a noticeable amount of texture streaming problems and object pop-in. I'm running the game from a hard drive, but so will 99% of people, and yes, that won't be helping issues, but really it shouldn't have that problem regardless. Now, these points certainly don't make the game unplayable, not close, but it was annoying. So gameplay-wise, I never played the first game, honestly because I'm not the biggest horror fan, but when this rolled around, I had heard such good opinions of the first game that I really wanted to try it out, and wow, I am seriously impressed. Like I said, it's not the experience I thought it would be. You're following on from the story of the first game, and without spoiling anything here, it's basically a rescue mission. You have a reason that you're forced to return into the STEM environment, which is essentially the Matrix for all intended purposes, and in this game the environment is a quiet US town. The problem is things have gotten pretty messed up, and the people, for the most part, are these disfigured, truly horrifying creatures that want to kill you. There are also more powerful forces at play that have caused a lot of the different things that are going on, and you essentially are just working your way through this world. Like I said, this game is a lot wider in scope than I believed it would be. You aren't in a single building, for example, but instead you start off with this whole town to explore. Go and do what you like. The scariest bits are then when you enter different buildings or locations and are forced to survive the untold horrors within. The game is fantastic at keeping you engaged. There is repetition for certain, but there are lots of bits that switch gameplay up. Forced stealth or combat or puzzles, or even a first-person section of the game, which is suddenly a very different feeling to the rest of the third-person experience. It keeps you on your toes in a very good way. Enemies are varied with lots of completely different, disgusting creatures that crawl, fly, run, scream, and explode, and it keeps you tentative when working out how to kill something. Just as you get used to killing one enemy type, you're faced with a new one, and you're significantly better off going as stealthily as possible throughout. Enemies take a lot of bullets, or whatever weapon damage you have, and the noise of those weapons will attract other enemies, so you should conserve your limited ammunition and try to sneak up on them. Get behind and stab away. The issue, well not issue, just lovely difficulty, is because the enemies aren't human, they aren't as predictable. They snap around in random directions, catching you off guard as you slowly work your way up behind them, and suddenly you're exposed and have to run for your life. The stealth mechanic is brilliant, and it works superbly. You're also given a large number of upgrade skill trees and weapon development trees to develop throughout, giving you lots to work towards. Collecting green goo from slaughtered enemies and the more elusive red glue allow for skill development, and overall, whilst very normal for a game to have a skill tree, it isn't a sloppy implementation. It works hand in hand with gameplay very happily. Crafting is also a huge component to gameplay. You pick up lots of varying items around the world which allow you to craft stuff, but yeah, mainly just more ammo. Combat is well built here too. You are no weapon expert when you start, that's for sure, but kills are brutal and satisfying. Weapons have heft and variety, and you get an interesting assortment to play with, and unusual ones to use as well, such as a crossbow that can take a wide range of bolt types. I will say though that combat is exceptionally sluggish for a long time because the game's designed to hold you back until you've upgraded your abilities further. Weapons have their fire rate manually held back far below realistic levels, same with the reload speeds, and you have to unlock upgrades to these respective skill trees in order to increase these to normal functioning levels. It does feel a bit forced. The same applies to knife combat. There you're always being held back. Whilst you can stab once, it takes ages before the game will allow you to swing again, even though you could clearly swing again. It is obvious all of this is to increase tension and make life harder, and whilst for the most part I do get that and I don't have a problem with it, at points I feel another reason should have been given for your lack of speed. Give us something more believable to pretend why we wouldn't be able to shoot faster or reload faster. The cover mechanic is of rather significant importance, and whilst it works well mostly, it doesn't work perfectly. I frequently found issue with snapping to it, such as when you're snapped to one cover and then run to another with the built-in feature. I had to let go of the cover button, then re-click it to snap to the new cover, which doesn't make sense. You would have thought you would just automatically enter the other cover once you've completed the animation to run towards it. And yeah, I just feel a bit of a tidy up from a technical perspective would make the cover system more smooth. These slightly technical, glitchy moments extend all over the place. For example, the magazine in your pistol nearly always freaks out when you reload, just hovering in the air under your pistol for a bit after it's been ejected. So weird. Also, the button B on your controller manipulates your torch, and when you exit a book or something you've been reading in-game, by pressing B to exit, you also end up toggling your torch state. It's nothing huge, but just weirdly like they didn't sense check this. So of course, many people will want to know how scary is this. Horror games obviously come in varying levels of scare factor, and I'd say whilst it has its tense, sweaty palm, heart-pounding moments, it's nowhere near the level of something like Resident Evil Biohazard, at least for me. This is certainly down to the third-person perspective, which dampens the impact of jump scares and the like, but also because of the game's interwoven open areas mixed with tight linear sections, that freedom lessens the game's scare factor. And I mean this in a good way. It's the level of horror more people will be interested in playing. It's not a full-out horror game and nothing else. It has a lot more to provide that will interest a larger gaming audience. The last few points I want to cover are save games are handled rather weirdly, trying to make it seem like you need to use manual save points when you don't really need to. So you do have special save game location points where you can manually save your game, but really these aren't important because the game saves automatically rather frequently and at useful moments. So I've only bothered to use the manual save mechanic when knowing I'm going to quit right after doing some skill upgrades or the like. It's a small point though. Like I said, the sound design in this is fantastic, with enemies sounding bloody, creepy, and disturbing as hell. On a surround sound setup or with headphones, this is a cornerstone to the game's scare immersion factor. That said, some of the voice acting is a bit cardboard, just dead, lacking real emotion, and this is a bit of a shame. And I'm not talking about when it's purposeful, like with the nurse, obviously. I totally recommend The Evil Within 2. It's a gripping, well-told, fun-to-play, scary, but not too scary game. It captured my attention the entire time I was playing, and I'm sure will thoroughly entertain you. I'm also going to give it a WAF score of 3. I want to give it a 4, but I'm holding it back because those cutscenes should be able to have their black bars removed, and so that will bring it up to a 4. But on the whole, 21x9 support is solid enough. So I hope that gives you some information on how the game runs at 21x9. Give this video a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe for future info. For any of the games at 21x9, head over to my channel or the WAF website. Hopefully I've covered it. If I haven't, then leave a comment down below and I'll try and cover it. And if you'd like to support the channel, the links to my Patreon page are in the description, and Amazon affiliate links are there too. See you later.
What's this? Some kind of cipher? I need this worse than you do, pal. So much for stealth.